What reverbs do you use whilst mixing? Now, there's a couple that I use, and there's one of them I have used for a good 10 years now. It's the one that I've used for years and years and years is the Lexicon 224 on UAD. And the reason I use that is because I used the hardware version a long time ago and tested them both against each other, and it was like, well, if you have the plugin, you've pretty much got the hardware, because they sounded identical in these comparisons that I was like physically doing myself. So I had direct comparison of the two, and there was minimal, if anything, difference, because the Lexicon 224 is a digital algorithm, basically in a box, that had massive relevance back in the day. But nowadays we're working with consoles, and we don't need to have these kind of outboard reverbs, especially when they're digital themselves. We're now taking them in the box and they sound exactly the same. I had the Neve RMS RX16, I think it was called, the 500 series, RMX16. I had one of them, and beautiful reverb. I had it in little 500 series box, and it sounded incredible. But then when you compared it to the UAD version, it was identical. You might as well just be using the hardware, the plugin, rather than the hardware. And that was just kind of fact. That was how, that is fact. And I know that as fact because I've done these tests. I've blind tested them, and you cannot tell the difference. So I used the 224 Lexicon for many years. After hearing that, I was like, right, well, I'm going to use that every time. It's a brilliant sounding reverb. It's got classic sounds on it. It's got one of the best vocal plates you'll ever hear on it. It's brilliant. So I will use that a lot, and I mainly use that now, as I still use it as my vocal plate. I'll still use it as, if I need stereo reverb, I will still use it for that. I'll use it as my drum room as well, because it has a lovely room sound, like a small room on it. Sounds incredible, and it's brilliant for drums. Just to give, it's not like overly reverby, it just puts those drums into a nice small room, and it sounds great, and it sounds natural, and that's exactly what I want to achieve with the 224. The other reverb that I use a lot, and I use it because I'm working in Atmos, and this is my Atmos reverb, is the Cinematic Rooms reverb, and it's basically a 3D reverb. I can put it all around the room, so it sounds, I can make sounds in Atmos sound like they're engulfing a room, and things like strings and pads and all sounds like that, they sound unbelievable in Atmos. When you put this reverb on, it's going all around the room. It makes you stand in the middle of a room, and it feels like the strings are played into the room. It's so beautiful sounding, and that's the brilliant thing about Atmos and 3D reverbs. It's different class, it really is. The great thing about it as well is the way it folds down into stereo, because so you can run the binaural, render back, monitor that, and you get this reverb that is technically in stereo, but it's binaural, so it's folding all these multiple channels. I think 7.1.4, actually it does 9.1.4, folds all those channels down into a binaural stereo file, and you've basically got this reverb that is like, wow. It immerses the whole of your head when you listen to it, instead of stereo just being like, it's quite unnatural stereo. Whereas the binaural stereo, or the Atmos reverb, just sounds ridiculously good. So they're the main two that I will use. I don't think there's many other that I use. Yeah, it is basically those two reverbs.